Hello everyone, my name is Beckett and welcome back to the channel. And today in Division 2 we're going to be breaking down another build video for you guys today. And I finally went and picked up the Capacitor and we're going to be pairing it up with everyone's favorite skill, the Oxidizer. Now don't sleep on the skill because it is quite amazing when you play to its strengths, and we are definitely going to be doing that today. But before we get started, if you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe, and if you like the video, smash that like button. First off, let's hop into the playstyle. Since we're going to be playing around the Oxidizer, we're going to have huge moments of AoE or single target burst where we're going to be able to drop everything to the ground really quick, followed by moments of downtime where we're going to be focusing on overcharging our team, sustaining our damage, and generally keeping our capacitor buff rolling. And then we're going to go back into that burst period and just destroy everything again and again while putting out plenty of CC for our team. Now, one thing I do want to mention, map knowledge is going to help you immensely. It's not going to make or break the build, but it's definitely going to help maximize your DPS. So you know when to pop Oxidizer, you know when to CC. As well, just know when you should just generally just sit back and just worry about sustaining your damage, helping out your team as needed. Now, as for specializations, you are pretty much open to use any one you want. I went ahead and went with the Technician just so we can maximize our sustained damage when we have that downtime, so we can have that extra skill tier and we can put a weapon core or armor core, whatever you prefer, and also we get that extra 10% skill damage to buff our Oxidizer. As for weapons, we will be using the Capacitor. This is one of the newest exotics coming out of TU12, and it comes with the talent Capacitance. Every time we shoot an enemy, we get a stacking buff of 1.5% skill damage going all the way up to 40, giving us 60% skill damage, and very easy to maintain even throughout pulls when you're out of combat. As soon as you get back into combat, it's going to be back up to 40 in no time. As well as that, for every skill tier we have, we gain 7.5% weapon damage going all the way up to 60 if we have 6 skill tiers. Very nice, completely edges out the Harmony or any perfectly in sync weapon. As for a secondary, I went with the Mechanical Animal. Now you can use any weapon with Future Perfection. This just so when we know we're going into those high burst periods where we're going to be running into 10 or 15 enemies at once, we can overcharge everything, increasing our skill damage, as well as being able to pretty much CC everything that's inside the room. Now as for our mask, we are going to be using the exotic, the Vial, and every time we put out a status effects, which will be our CC about every 30 seconds, it's going to put a debuff or a status effect on that enemy that's going to tick on them every 10 seconds. Now, although we won't have 100% uptime, it will be up when we need it. When we pop our CC, we're going to go straight into our burst period, and it's just going to multiply and add damage on top of damage. Now, as for a gear set, we will be using the 4-piece Eclipse protocol. Make sure you have the chest just so you can spread around the status effects as long as possible, and the backpack for that 30% amplified damage on all status effect enemies. Just like the Vial, we won't have 100% uptime on the backpack, but when we do, when we go into those huge burst periods with the Oxidizer, it is going to be very helpful, and it's going to boost that Oxidizer damage completely to the sky. Now what I did was re-roll one of my Eclipse protocol pieces to weapon damage so I could make use of the skill tier from Technician, and just so my capacitor was just pumping out that 15% extra weapon damage. Now as for our final piece, we are going to be using a Wyvern, and just make sure you have skill damage on it and status effects. And the main priority on all of our attributes is you want status effects first because we want to keep our CC up as long as possible. Otherwise, our backpack is going to be pretty much useless. And then we're going to put skill damage into everything else, as well as gear mods. Just put skill haste just so we have our Oxidizer up all the time. Now as for our skills, we will be using the Shock Trap to CC and the Oxidizer to do our damage. Since enemies and NPCs do not like the Oxidizer, they will move immediately. We need something to keep them locked down. Now the Shock Trap and Oxidizer have really great synergy. Since the Shock Trap you'll be able to use about every 30 seconds, and you should have close or almost 2 full stacks of the Oxidizer when it's ready, so you can throw out your Shock Trap and you can just start spamming the Oxidizer. Now the Oxidizer is really great because it doesn't doesn't actually work like a status effect. If you didn't know how status effects works, you can only apply a status effect once and you have to wait for it to fall off and then you can reapply it. Now that doesn't work with the oxidizer. You can just spam it and spam it. Now let's say I'm getting ready to go into my burst period. I throw out my shock trap. I have 6 oxidizer charges ready. I spam all of those. Enemies aren't able to move and the oxidizer is ticking from anywhere between 200 and 300k for each tick. Now you times that by 6 and it is quite a lot of damage. You're looking at anywhere from 1 million to 2 million every tick. Now on the other side, if I was just using the fire starter chem launcher and I had 6 charges, I could fire all 6, but only 1 is going to apply onto the enemy. Now this puts us in a great position where we can pretty much do a huge burst about every 30 seconds, sustain our damage, come back, throw our shock trap again, and do another huge burst. Like I said, just know where the enemy layouts are, where they're going to spawn, and you're going to make the most use out of this build. Now there are a few things I want to mention that are really priorities for this build. Now you want to try to keep your stacks on your capacitor up at all time. Don't worry, it's going to be very easy to manage this. If you've used the capacitor before, you'll understand it's not really that big of an issue. Next, we're going to want to know map knowledge. Like I said, it's not important, but it is going to help you extensively. If you know exactly where the enemies are spawned, you can go there, you can throw your shock trap, spam all your oxidizers, and then once that's done, you can just go back to your capacitor and sustain your damage, overcharge if you have to, and then after that, it's going to be a rinse and repeat, and you're going to get fairly used to it after that. It's going to feel a little different at first, but once you get into the rhythm and you know what you can do and know what you can't do, and honestly, I would just hold on to those oxidizer shots. Sometimes you may need to pop off 1 or 2 if you get into a spot, but if you're just popping them every time one comes off cooldown, you're going to get into a lot of trouble and you are just losing a lot of damage. Now there is a small caveat, like if this happens, you do this. So there is a time where it is worth it to use your oxidizer if you do not have your shock trap up or your CC, since the backpack will amplify all your damage to any status effect target. That doesn't mean it has to be yours. So if you have another CC person in your group, go ahead and pop off a couple oxidizer shots because it's going to be well worth it and you're going to put out a lot of damage for your team. Now that's all I have for the build video for you guys today, but if you have any questions about the build or anything, go ahead and put it down in the comments. I almost answer every single comment that comes through this channel. Now if you're looking for more content, I do a build video almost every single week, as well as tutorials, Division 2 news, everything for old players to new players, and everything in between. And thanks again for watching. I will see you guys next time.